Restoring the Adventist Health Message, the 11th Hour Call. Hello, I am John EverBlest, and we start off with the most basic of questions. Why must the health message be restored? Primarily, number one, because multitudes of Seventh-day Adventists are perishing within reach of abundant help. That abundant help was God's gift of the health message. Stories of abundant healing are common when treatment is based on God's health message. It teaches that disease is caused by violation of natural law, and thus restored by obeying natural law. Yet increased suffering, addictions, cascading side effects, and premature death is common when disease is treated as a pharmaceutical deficiency. The world's drug-based healthcare system has been allowed to replace our health message, even though long ago we were giving many warnings of the extreme danger of drugs. I'm just going to review one of those many reasons, the many warnings. I was shown that more deaths have been caused by drug taking than from all other causes combined. That's from Spiritual Gifts, Volume 4A, page 133.1. That chapter is filled with warnings and counsels. Now, let's consider the magnitude of such a statement that more deaths have been caused by drug taking than from all other causes combined. That means that pharmakeia outkills the combined efforts of accidents, war, genocide, suicide, murder, disease, plagues, natural disasters, natural causes. This is the primary reason why the health message must be restored in these last hours of our probation. But this statement wasn't the end of Ellen White's warning. She continues. If there was in the land one physician in the place of thousands, a vast amount of premature mortality would be prevented. Multitudes of physicians and multitudes of drugs have cursed the inhabitants of the earth and have carried thousands and tens of thousands to untimely graves. There are many ways of practicing the healing art, but there's only one way that heaven approves. God's remedies are the simple agencies of nature that will not tax or debilitate the system through their powerful properties. Pure air and water, cleanliness, a proper diet, purity of life, and a firm trust in God are remedies for the want of which thousands are dying. That's the Testimonies, Volume 5, page 443.1. We are told that continual reform must be kept before the people. And by our example, we must enforce our teaching. True religion and the laws of health go hand in hand. It is impossible to work for the salvation of men and women without presenting to them the need of breaking away from sinful gratifications, which destroy the health, debase the soul, and prevent divine truth from impressing the mind. Testimonies, Volume 7, page 137.1. Number 2, the health message must be restored because obedience to natural law is an end-time testing truth for all of us. We are told that we cannot disregard the laws of nature without disregarding the laws of God. Second Selected Messages 346 and 7. We are also told, if church members do not act the part God has assigned them, the movement of health reform, that's our health message, will go on without them. And it will be seen that God has removed their candlestick out of its place. We do not want that to happen. Those who refuse to receive and practice the light will be left in the background. Number 3, the health message must be restored because the health reform is one branch of the great work which is to fit a people for the coming of the Lord. Well, now that's sobering. It is as closely connected with the third angel's message as the hand is with the body. That means that the third angel's message cannot go forth properly without a restored health message. She continues, to make natural law plain and to urge obedience to it is a work that accompanies the third angel's message. Number 4, the health message must be restored because diseases are now coming with such power and intensity that mankind can no longer afford to neglect the healing power embedded into nature. Our health message repeatedly tells us that both prevention and cure are found in nature. Believe in the Lord your God, so shall ye be established. Believe his prophets, so shall ye prosper. And our prophet has told us that our health care, both prevention and cure, are found in nature. It's time to bring out those big guns. And nature has the biggest guns by far. Number 5, the health message needs to be restored because it is now nearly impossible for even natural health providers to keep up with the global poisoning while still selectively neglecting healing principles within our health message. Some people think there is only 8. That is so far from the truth. It's going to require a paradigm shift. So what would a restored and properly calibrated end-time Adventist natural health care look like? It would look sustainable. Just like the gospel, God's end-time health care must be available to all without price. That's why God mercifully embedded it into nature. It must be so simple and easy that anyone can use it. That's why God made it automatic, put it into nature. Its healing principles are not grievous. This is an example. This is from Ministry of Healing, page 127.2 from Ellen White. Pure air, sunlight, abstemiousness, rest, exercise, a proper diet, the use of water, trusted in divine power. These are the true remedies. Those are just the basics. That's the foundation, the building blocks. She says many other things that are not in this list. Notice that none of those things are grievous. There are many more that could be mentioned. Number 2, a restored end-time healthcare would not be dependent on drug-based hospitals for anything, for 2 reasons. 1, the world's drug-based hospitals, medical philosophies, and actions are not in harmony with God's natural law. Reason number 2 for not being dependent on drug-based hospitals for anything? Because in the last great conflict of the controversy with Satan, those who are loyal to God will see every earthly support cut off. Because they refuse to break his law in obedience to earthly powers, they will be forbidden to buy or sell. That's from the Desire of Ages, page 121, the 1898 version. This means that, number 3, end-time natural law healthcare must be fully self-contained, all-encompassing. In order to be self-contained, it must make up for lack of access to doctors and hospitals, which includes emergency services, surgeries, deliveries, pain meds, medical therapy devices, insulin, everything, as the world turns into chaos. The concern for end-time Christians is not about how long we can continue to use hospital services and man-made medical therapy devices before we can no longer buy or sell. No, it's about how quickly we can learn to treat disease without any of them. If we lose access to hospital services and therapy devices, we make up for it by a determined partnership with God. Fortunately, God offers us that partnership. He says, "If thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and will do that which is right in his sight, and wilt give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, including the health statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee." Exodus 15:26. In other words, he's saying, you keep my statutes, I will keep you healthy. This seems to be the key to surviving the genocidal poisoning of mankind. This broad Bible promise does not say, I will keep you healthy, well, unless Satan starts poisoning the earth and your bodies. Then my promises they won't be of any effect. I'm powerless. He does not say that. We humans tend to emphasize a specific natural remedy for a specific disease. But God emphasizes obeying his statutes for true health and healing. A health partnership. Conditional. So, let's go to our first real-life example of an end-time health partnership with God. This one-page story is excerpted from page 68 of the book called Over and Over Again, 1998. The story is entitled God's Medical Plan. And here it is. With mixed emotions, we, a family of 6, came home to the United States on permanent return from mission service. These are Adventists. We had enjoyed 6 exciting years as missionaries in Libya, Cyprus, and Tanzania. As we settled happily into our new environment in Collegedale, Tennessee, and I started my dental practice, we had to choose some type of medical insurance program for the family. In checking with several insurance companies, we found that our average monthly premium would be about $400, and that was way back when. After much prayer, together with studying God's Word and the spirit of prophecy, we chose to do something a little different, a lot different. We made a covenant with the Lord, a partnership. We decided to put $400 a month into a special savings account that would be used only when one of us needed medical treatment. It took some faith to do this. We had to take into consideration that our 3rd child, Nancy, had contracted malaria and hepatitis 6 months before leaving Africa. She was still weak and limited in her physical activities. Jack, our 4th child, had bouts with tonsillitis. Nevertheless, our part of the covenant was that we would practice all God's health laws regarding nutrition, daily exercise, adequate water, sunshine, temperance, fresh air, rest, and a trusting relationship with Him. We would wear our seatbelts too. God's part of the covenant was that He would bless us and protect us from catastrophic illness. In 4 years, our health fund contained a sizable amount of money. We chose to invest that money into building a duplex for rent. 4 years later, we again invested the monies in our medical savings into building a second duplex, a total of 8 rental units. The rental properties gave us another source of income and a helpful tax advantage. 4 years ago, with our children grown and married, and with their own families, we sold our duplexes after operating them as a side business for 16 years. Our net profit was approximately $150,000, which was available to be used in the Lord's work. The total of all our medical bills in more than 20 years for our family of 6 was less than $5,000. Our simple testimony is that God keeps his promises when we are faithful and trust him. Them that honor me, I will honor. 1 Samuel 2:30. Strict adherence to God's health laws is not just about health and healing. It's not. Daniel and his 3 companions honored God publicly by their strict adherence to his health statutes, even at the risk of death. And God honored them by making them the healthiest, wisest, and most honored men in all of Babylon. God honors obedience and faith. That's why it's important to use what he specifies. If we expect healing and honor and miracles of healing. Again, strict adherence to God's natural law isn't just about health and healing. Sometimes God uses illness as a way to save us by bringing us to repentance and to surrender. These are necessary preparation for God's healing interventions. Will we trust in God in times of illness? Will we use what God has specified? Now, the next story I'm about to tell is my own story. It describes what happened when I surrendered to God when I was sick. After my gallbladder surgery, I was sick for 1.5 years, and I didn't know why, but it didn't have anything to do with my gallbladder. And I kept getting more and more serious symptoms. One of those symptoms was a long-term, continuous, sharp pain in my back on both sides. My doctor told me that was adrenal fatigue from constant fear and anxiety from those mysterious health conditions. Things had gotten so bad that my wife and I knelt down to pray together. We had done that many times, but this time I completely surrendered myself to God unto death. The results be what they may. I did not want to do this. I didn't feel anything but fear and sinfulness either before or after that prayer. Yet when I got up from prayer, I realized that the long-term adrenal pain had been healed. It was gone. It was the surrender to God unto death that moved the hand of the Lord to heal. This is the foundation of healing. He says, I am the Lord that healeth thee. Now, just so you know, after the surgery, I was already eating exceedingly healthfully according to natural law. But that alone did not trigger the miraculous healing from God for me. One way or the other, true healing has always been a spiritual matter. It always involves God. It always has. And then there's Job. Job's illness and suffering was a witness to the entire universe. Though he slay me, yet will I trust him. Job was honored magnificently before the entire universe. If Job can get to that point, so can we. Sometimes God uses illness as an opportunity to show himself strong to our sphere of influence and our friends and family. Like the story of Hezekiah's illness, where God moved the sun back 10 degrees as proof that Hezekiah was healed. It attracted nations to God. So the last thing we want to do is to allow our illness to cause us to fret and worry ourselves out of the hand of God. King Ahaziah did that, and it cost him his life. He chose to inquire of the gods of Ekron instead of God. We stay true to his health statutes. We do not want to rob God of his glory. Can we expect a miracle of healing if we trust in man rather than God? The Lord will not work a miracle to restore to soundness those who continue to use drugs which so degrade soul, mind, and body that sacred things are not appreciated. That was Ellen White. God has given us many such warnings against pharmakeia. Do those warnings not apply when it comes to pain meds? Because I used to think that, which is kind of lack of faith on my part. Well, it's kind of nutty. Has God left us in the hands of the merchants of pharmakeia when it comes to severe pain? Is his arm shortened that he cannot save? What if we are not as bound to pain meds as has been supposed? If God warned us against pharmakeia, would he not offer alternatives? The following story is just one example of one such alternative. This is an excerpt from a letter to Ellen G. White from Dr. D.H. Kress and A.G. Daniels. July 19, 1903, Warunga, New South Wales, Australia. It's Dr. Kress who is speaking. Here's what he says. When I first connected with the Battle Creek Sanitarium, I passed through a very severe experience. Those who were there before Doctors Rand, Paulson, and I arrived all administered drugs. Consequently, the patients who came expected drugs, and we had to face them. Sometimes our feet well nigh slipped, but by God's grace, I was kept. Many a time I have taken up the hypodermic syringe for the purpose of relieving pain, and would then kneel down, put the drugs to one side, and plead with God for the patient, and help would come. I have seen miracles wrought in this way that have given me confidence in the plan outlined in the testimonies for the treatment of disease. The time came when a different class of patients came to our sanitarium. Those who were healed without drugs went home and told their friends and acquaintances, and they came and would have been disappointed should drugs have been administered. There's no excuse anymore. This is our last day testing truth. This is our opportunity, our necessity to embrace this aspect, rarely used aspect of our health message. Them that honor me, I will honor. All right, let's talk about drugs just a bit more. Another story here. This is a letter from J.A. Burden to W.C. White, September 10, 1907, Loma Linda Messages, page 264. Let me tell you about Mr. Burden, by the way. J.A. Burden was given many, many letters and counsel from Ellen White. But he is the only pioneer who were given this amount of letters who never received a letter of rebuke from Ellen White. So, what we're about to read is important and useful to us. He says, "From my experience with our physicians, they usually consider rational treatment a very good thing until they come to some serious testing point in their experience where their knowledge in these lines fails to meet the necessity of the case. And then they take a plunge into the dark and mystical abyss of questionable medicines. Some of the very things that the spirit of prophecy has said should never enter into the human system, for they are Satan's substitutes for the Spirit of God." I have never heard that sentence, this letter, that author preached anywhere from any pulpit in all of my 64 years of life. But when we counsel over the matter, all they say is, "We don't know what else to do." He continues, "It's probably true. But if I can understand the instructions sent us, it is that students should learn all they can in scientific lines and their application as far as sound wisdom and judgment can carry them. And beyond this, they should depend wholly upon the Lord for guidance and help as to what should be done in emergencies." That covers emergency health care for the remnant of the church. If I can understand the messages, we are warranted in expecting that the Lord will give special wisdom in these times. That was a long time ago. So it really applies to us now. This slide, this letter, is probably the most important of all the letters of all the slides I put in here. It's really life-changing if we adopt it. All right. Next story. This is from Ellen White. "Oh, how great are the possibilities that he has placed within our reach. He says, 'Whatsoever ye shall ask the Father in my name, he will give it you.' He promises to come to us as a comforter to bless us. Why do we not believe these promises? That which we lack in faith, we make up by the use of drugs? Let us give up the drugs, believing that Jesus does not desire us to be sick, and that if we live according to the principles of health reform, he will keep us well." Okay, I stand corrected. This is more important. All right, they go hand in hand. They were really, really, really telling stuff for us Adventists in this generation. All right, let's move on to harder things still. What about surgeries in these end times? All right, I got a story for that too. This is a modern day story from a friend of mine. She says, "When I was a child, I witnessed my mom being miraculously healed through prayer just minutes before surgery. The best part was that she had been telling the doctors that the Lord was going to intervene, and he absolutely did. It turned out to be a wonderful testimony for the doctors and hospital staff that day. Her doctor had to admit that he had indeed witnessed a miracle. My mama came home feeling great and grinning from ear to ear." Even surgery, folks. Don't think this doesn't apply. Don't think that this doesn't apply now. We're not waiting for the time and trouble to learn how to do this. We must learn it, experience it now. Do we not see the signs of the time? Do we not see what's happening in the hospitals? We are not going to be able to hold on to that green cord without this level of faith and experience First, God is leading us back for the final time to the better way as the world is spinning out of control. We are in that 11th hour. We are to be his witnesses for his glory, not our own. Now, miracles of healing, these tend to require that we afflict our souls before God. Am I right with God? Have I confessed every known sin? Am I right with my brethren? Am I holding any grudges? Have I forgiven those that hurt me? Have I surrendered unto death? Have I rejected light from God? Is there anything that has come between me and God? You make the healing about God's glory. It's not really about your healing. It's about God's glory and saving others. Fortunately, this kind of soul affliction is exactly what we are supposed to be doing anyway in this anti-typical Day of Atonement. Now, the next few slides describe the balance to be had in such an end-time health partnership with God and how to avoid presumption. When these nurses start their shift with sincere and public prayer, professing faith in God that he will intervene, why then, for the next 8 hours, do they not just sit back and watch God work for them and let him intervene? Why don't they just ask God for miracles of healing? Well, the next slides will begin to answer that. This next section is found in Second Selected Messages, page 346 and 347. She says, God's miracles do not always bear the outward semblance of miracles. Often they are brought about in a way which looks like the natural course of events. But remember, God says, I am the Lord which heals you. When we pray for the sick, we also work for them. We answer our own prayers by using the remedies within our reach. Water, wisely applied, is a most powerful remedy. Not the most powerful remedy, a most powerful remedy. As it is used intelligently, favorable results are seen. God has given us intelligence, and he desires us to make the most of his health-giving blessings. We ask that God will give bread to the hungry. We are then to act as his helping hand in relieving hunger. We are to use every blessing God has placed within our reach for the deliverance of those in danger. Natural means used in accordance with God's will, you got that? Used in accordance with God's will, bring about supernatural results. That's a powerful promise. We ask for a miracle, and the Lord directs the mind to some simple remedies. Your thoughts are not always your own. We ask to be kept from the pestilence that walketh in darkness, that is stalking with such power through the world, since 2020 especially. We are then to cooperate with God, observing the laws of health and life. Could it really be that simple? It must be that simple, because there's no way we are getting through this relentless bombardment of poisons in these end times without a strong, persevering partnership with God. That is the foundation of the paradigm shift in which is being advocated throughout this presentation. All right, continuing on with Ellen White's quote. Having done all that we possibly can, that's a very important principle there. Very important. Having done all that we possibly can, we are to keep asking in faith for health and strength. We are to eat that food which will preserve the health of the body. God gives us no encouragement that he will do for us what we can do for ourselves. Very important. Natural laws are to be obeyed. We are not to fail of doing our part. We cannot disregard the laws of nature without disregarding the laws of God. Drugs mess with the natural order of things. It messes with natural law. We were told that we are to assist nature in her efforts to expel impurities, not inject them directly into the bodies. We are a people that are supposed to live by principle, promise, and every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God, not man. We cannot expect the Lord to work a miracle for us while we neglect the simple remedies he has provided for our use, which, aptly and opportunely applied, will bring about miraculous results. Second Selected Messages, page 346 and 347. The Lord has given me light, that when the Israel of today humble themselves before him and cleanse the soul temple from all defilement, he will hear their prayers in behalf of the sick and will bless in the use of his remedies for disease. Continuing on, when in faith the human agent does all he can to combat disease, all he can, using the simple methods of treatment that God has provided, his efforts will be blessed of God. We have got to start paying attention to these sorts of counsels. This is from Counsels for the Church, 238. All right, let's talk about blind Bartimaeus for a second. These are my own words here. Blind Bartimaeus was cured by clay mixed with spittle and placed on his eyes. Yet we know very good and well that clay mixed with spittle does not cure the world of blindness. That's because it's not about the clay. It's never been about the clay. God does not require nature's agencies to heal us, but we use them because he has told us to. Using them is an act of obedience and public evidence of our faith to our sphere and to the angels and to the universe. Anyone who's watching. Using them is an act of obedience and public evidence of our faith, which opens the way for God to provide supernatural results. Whatever natural remedies he has placed within your reach, he will bless if you present it to him in faith. But we have to ask sometimes, what is within our reach? God's healing provisions are not limited to the basic 8. His provisions for us are not limited to what we think we already know. The following is a simple, real-world example from my own experience of God's blessing a weak remedy simply because it was used in faith for his glory. When I was working as a respiratory therapist at a long-term acute care facility near Berrien Springs, Michigan, I walked into a patient's room to give her meds. A nurse was holding the patient's bloody nose with packing. This had been going on for quite some time. The patient was on blood thinners, which made matters much worse. So I found the doctor, an Adventist, and asked if we could try a natural remedy on the patient. She immediately physically recoiled at the mention of natural remedies, and in a scoffing manner repeated the words, "natural remedies." So I simply described what I had in mind and reassured her that it was just basic physiology 101. Divert the blood from her congested head to other parts of her body with hot and cold water. That was all. That was it. It was simple. It was simple, which means it was likely from God. Now, the doctor had already contacted the ER at the main hospital 20 miles away and was preparing to call an ambulance to move the patient there because the nosebleed would not stop. But she reluctantly agreed to let me try before she called the ambulance. So this is what I did. I quietly prayed and placed an ice bag on the back of her neck and her feet in hot water. In less than 2 minutes, the nosebleed stopped. But here's the rub. And there was a rub. She could only tolerate tepid water, not hot, not warm, tepid water, thus making it ineffective. So what did we do? I simply claimed the promise that God would give his natural remedy supernatural results. And he did. This is why we pray before every application of natural remedies, acknowledging him as our healer and protector, not the remedy itself. We know what's going on there. It's not the remedies themselves. This is a quote from Patriarchs and Prophets, page 554. The most complete system that men have ever devised, apart from the power and wisdom of God, will prove a failure, while the most unpromising methods will succeed when divinely appointed and entered upon with humility and faith. There it is. That's the formula, man. Are God's divinely appointed methods powerful enough to prevail against the escalating, satanic, genocidal, global poisoning of mankind? All right, well, it's a good question. The following micro-stories are proof that the simple things of nature can indeed prevail against the genocidal poisoning if the methods are divinely appointed and entered upon with humility and faith. There are so many stories that can be told. Let's start with this little one. Parkinson's induced forward neck drop. There's the before and after images. His neck straightened in 21 days in the sunlight. Started September 2024, a 21-day tour of the national parks. This man was fully clothed. His name is Larry Peterson. Lives in Florida. He was fully clothed, in a wheelchair, no exercise. His son did much of the driving at night so that Larry, from early morning till after sunset, could be in the fresh air, sunlight, and the healing beauty of nature. Yes, healing beauty. Beauty is healing. All he had to do, Larry, was to show up. This is being presented here because Parkinson's is a disease of toxicity, the poisons, accumulated poisons. All right, story number 2, little micro story. Full-fledged Parkinson's disease. Again, this Parkinson's is a disease of accumulated poisons and toxins. Dr. Jeff Gates gave a health lecture in Battle Creek about 24 years ago when I was working there with that lifestyle center. He told of his uncle who had Parkinson's disease. Dr. Gates placed him on a water fast for 2 weeks, by which time most of his symptoms were gone. Not all, but most. Gates then paused the fast to rebuild his uncle's strength. They resumed a bit later for a short time in which his uncle fully recovered from Parkinson's. Number 3, mercury poisoning. This is my favorite healing story here. The following story is from the book by Paul G. Bragg of Bragg's Liquid Aminos. He's a naturopathic doctor, a PhD. The book that he wrote is called The Miracle of Fasting. This is the 50th edition, page 76 and 77. It is by far my favorite fasting story. As I said, here it is. Remember that as long as there is any toxic waste in your circulation, you may feel some discomfort during your fast. But as soon as the vital force flushes these poisons out through your kidneys, you will start to feel better. Many times during a fast, old drugs that have been buried in your system for years are loosened up and flushed out of the body. Let me tell you one of my greatest experiences when I first started fasting. Now let's go back to my early childhood diet. I was born and reared in Virginia, and I was fed a typically greasy, starchy, fatty, and sugary diet. My body was so filled with toxins as a child that I had every known childhood disease. Mumps, measles, whooping cough, you name them, and I had them. Along with these childhood miseries, I was given large amounts of a drug known as calomel. And this drug was filled with quicksilver, mercury. Yeah, it's getting interesting, isn't it? After I was restored to a good state of health at Dr. Augusta Rollier's sanitarium in Leysen, Switzerland, I started my regular fasting program, which I am proud to say I have continued through all these wonderful years since then. I fasted one 24-hour period weekly, and 4 times a year at 3 months intervals. I fasted from 7 to 10 days, always on a distilled water fast. After I had been on this fasting program for 5 years, it was during one of my 10-day fasts that a great miracle happened to me. I was at my family's old homestead in Virginia. On about the 7th day of a 10-day fast, I was out in a canoe on the river, leisurely enjoying the sunshine and fresh air, when suddenly, without warning, I doubled up with stomach cramps. I thought I would never be able to stand the pain. But with great effort, I got ashore. And then it happened. I had a terrific bowel evacuation. At the end of this evacuation, I felt a heavy, cool sensation in my rectum, and out passed a 1/3 cup of the quicksilver from the toxic calomel that I took in my childhood. Whoa, could we have a lot to say about this, but whoa. That stuff stays in the system. That experience marked a new day in my entire physical structure. From that day on, I knew what superior health meant. My vital force was increased so greatly with my program of eating natural living foods, fasting, sunshine, and exercise that all my body cells rejoiced with my new energy power. With fasting, I eliminated the drugs that were given to me in my youth. Now that is a story with teeth. Here's the application to us. You will appreciate it. I appreciated it. Here it is. What if God has already specified in our health message the counteragents to the weapons formed against us in the global genocidal poisoning of mankind? I believe that. What if the cure is not some new complicated semi-pharmaceutical set of expensive potions or even some new natural remedy, but simply implementing all the light God has already given us, like Paul Bragg just demonstrated? Simple, folks. By the way, toxins take turns coming out. The worst are saved to last. Mercury is one of the deadliest toxins on planet Earth and notoriously difficult to defeat and expel. Yet Mr. Bragg just conclusively proved that God has given the body the ability to naturally eject even mercury automatically. What I've been telling you about automatic? Simply by fasting and a life lived in harmony with the Bible and Eden health principles, whether he knew it or not. What if all the other poisons from the clot shots, chemtrails, pharmaceuticals, GMOs, pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, etc., 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 could also be dissolved or ejected automatically by an outdoor lifestyle in harmony with biblical principles, fasting, and an unshakable partnership with God? It's not really about what we can do. It's about what God can do when we partner with him. Fourth little micro story. You're about to see the results of daily charcoal slurries for 13 weeks. The lady's name is Kimberly Dinsleys of charcoalhouse.com in Crawford, Nebraska. Here's what happened in a nutshell. In 13 weeks, she eliminated mercury poisoning. Her memory and brain fog, by the way, that was done in 3 days. She was accused of having Parkinson's disease. It was so bad. 3 days of charcoal. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a second. So, mercury poisoning, memory and brain fog, chronic candida infection, yeast infections, antibiotic side effects, low energy, parasites, liver spots. Liver spots! All right, now the details of that can be found at charcoalhouse.com, that whole link there. Now the story is detailed. The protocol is simple. The results were spectacular, and you can find it there at that link. Now let's talk about that 3-day memory loss thing. Those first 3 days, she used 2 to 3 tablespoons of charcoal. Yes, 2 to 3 tablespoons of charcoal in a glass of water, about 8 times a day for 3 days. That's all it took to regain her memory and eliminate the brain fog. God is really good, don't you think? Number 5, snake venom. Ooh, you know what this is going to be about, don't you? And when Paul had gathered a bundle of sticks and laid them on the fire, there came a viper out of the heat and fastened on his hand. And when the barbarians saw the venomous beast hang on his hand, they said amongst themselves, "No doubt this man is a murderer, for whom, though he hath escaped the sea, yet vengeance suffereth not to live." And he shook off the beast into the fire and felt no harm. Howbeit they looked when he should have swollen or fallen down dead suddenly, but after they had looked a great while and saw no harm come to him, they changed their minds and said that he was a god. Acts 28, 3-6. Again, God sometimes allows such health crises that he may show himself strong to the world. We stay in tune with God. Behold, I give unto you power to tread on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. Luke 10:19. They shall take up serpents, and if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. They shall lay hands on the sick, and they shall recover. Mark 16:18, out of the King James Version. These promises are essential in such a time as this. This Bible promise in Luke 10:19 sounds like Jesus had our generation in mind when he made those promises, because it fits today's satanic, genocidal global poisoning with the venoms of serpents and scorpions. Sound familiar? God is showing us that through him, it is possible to sever our dependency on the world's medical system as we become 100% dependent on him as the world falls apart. It's inevitable, one way or the other. Whether it scares you to hear this or not, it's inevitable. It's coming. You got to build your faith. It's coming. So, once again, what would a restored, properly calibrated, end-time Adventist natural health care look like? It would look like the original, authentic Adventist health message that was once delivered unto the saints, for which we must now earnestly contend. That's what I'm doing with this presentation, earnestly contending for it. Thus saith the Lord, stand ye in the ways and see, and ask for the old paths, where is the good way, and walk therein, and ye shall find rest for your souls. This end-time healthcare would look like a system that has expelled man's medical philosophies and traditions in favor of a clear, thus saith the Lord. It would emphasize what God emphasizes for our health and healing, not what man likes to emphasize. It will fully embrace obedience to God's natural law. It will fully embrace affliction of our souls, intercessory prayer, Bible promises, and yes, folks, miracles. These are indispensable for end-time health care. The signs of the times have proven to us that that time is now. You cannot wait until the absolute full crisis to start this. This is a faith-building exercise. So, where can you find this restored natural health care system? Just take a ride on the old paths. You will find it securely fastened to the restored, authentic gospel that was also once delivered unto the saints for these end times, for which we are also earnestly contending. So folks, welcome to the paradigm shift.